think we're live. That was scary. I was waiting for it to update so that I could go live, get a mic going. And I had live streams are not available at this time. Error. That was scary. So hopefully everything's going to go smoothly today. We are having massive, massive winds right now, like constant 25 miles an hour, and then of course bursts that are more. My poor baby crepe myrtles are kind of sideways. I'm hoping they make it through this, but fingers crossed everything goes smooth on this stream. It already is a little worrying where that's starting out. Let's see. It looks like everything is good. So, I forgot to take my Claritin. I'm going to be coughing like crazy all live stream and probably sneezing. So today we are excuse me, we are working with the, thanks Joseph, with the primary colors. I am using the set from Liquitex. This is their soft body. So I got the primary colors from Liquitex Basics. They don't blend well. Like they'll work. You're going to make pretty paintings from them. They're not going to give you the bright violet though. And it's kind of funny. It actually makes sense on why I've always just purchased my deep violet or bright violet, like magenta type of tones, because I use Liquitex Basics and I'm never mixed the bright color that I want. And now I kind of know why. Because the Liquitex Basics, there's not really a good red that was giving me the color I was looking for. Can I get a violet? Absolutely. It's just a bit more muted than what I was looking for. So what I ended up ordering were the Liquitex. This is the soft body, their mixing set of 6. It comes with the, which I will from here on out call Quidonkadonk, but it's actually, I can say it right if I read it. Quinacridone, a crimson. Quinacridone, I can't say any of the words. Quinacridone crimson. Quinacridone crimson. I think that's how you say it. Whatever, I call it Quidonkadonk because I don't know why that is how my brain translates that. So that was the big thing, is that a lot of the other, the non-Quidonkadonk reds, they don't get that bright, brilliant, like magenta, the violet colors that I want to be able to create when I'm using primary colors. I'm using the ultramarine blue. I've got, this one is the yellow medium Azo. I pronounce everything wrong, so we all know that. Moving on. And it has ivory black. We'll see how deep this is. I don't typically use ivory black for creating dark background, although this doesn't have that much, so I'll probably be okay. And then it also came with Hooker's green, which handy, but I will just be mixing my own, so I'm not going to be using that in today's video. I'm almost curious because the Liquitex soft body has such a great selection of colors. I'm curious to see how well the transfer paper works. I haven't used it in years trying to paint straight from it. There are a couple of reasons just before, as we get started, wait for everyone to get here. A couple of reasons that I typically use Liquitex Basics. One, it's really inexpensive. When I started painting, I was doing the whole starving artist thing, so inexpensive was good. But as I kept painting, I realized this, when I tried the heavy body, when I tried the soft body, I realized I really just prefer the Liquitex Basics because they are not as pigmented. Now, if I'm doing an acrylic pour, the soft body are what I go with. But when I'm painting normally, I work in glazes, a lot of translucent glazes, and that gives me a lot of depth to my work. So the Liquitex Basics are perfect for that because they tend to be a bit more translucent in many of the colors. Not all of them, but a lot of them, and that just works for me. So that's why I've primarily stuck with them, but they are limited on the colors. They don't have as big of a color selection for a lot of the colors I'm interested in as the soft body and the heavy body. Now the heavy body, they're great if you're doing big, thick, chunky brush strokes. Heavy body is the way to go. But for how I paint, I don't typically work that way other than a few live streams. So I need something that's going to be a bit thinner for the type of brush strokes that I'm going for. The Liquitex Basics tends to dry fairly matte. I put a gloss finish over it, and so I get the finish I want, but it's matte to start with. And there are a couple of reasons I love that. One, when I use tracing and transfer paper, the transfer paper sticks to a matte finish better than a gloss. These are going to have a bit more of a gloss to it. The other thing is it is so much easier to photograph a finished painting when it's more matte. Once it has gloss on it, it's very, very hard to photograph. So it's just easier for me all around. Those are the reasons that I really like the Liquitex Basics. But I may end up, I'm loving these tubes. And I know that sounds like a ridiculous reason to want to use a specific brand. These little tubes, they're new ones that they've got. They've got a little pointy guy for pouring it out. It's like super clean and I'm not wasting a ton of paint. Kind of liking these. So I'm tempted to go all out and buy a bunch of these. We'll see how I like the finish on this one. But anyway, I did do a quick test. These colors blend perfectly for primaries. If you don't have these specific ones, use the colors you have. Just know that you're mainly the magentas, like your bright violet, that we're gonna have on the tulip to the right. It's not going to be quite as bright as if you're using these specific colors. So let's go ahead. And if you're really interested in color mixing and color theory, my friend Lena Dania here on YouTube, she's got an excellent video covering this. Now hers is an oil paint, but that's going to apply really to your acrylics or your pencils, whatever. It covers a lot of information very well. I've got a link. I should have the link in the video description. Hopefully I remember to include it, but it's an excellent, like she covers way more in that than what I'm going to cover in this, because we're really focusing on completing the project. So we're going to start with our background. I did not pre-draw out my tulips because if I do, I'm going to be, acrylics dry very fast. And if I have to try to paint around the flowers, it's going to be choppy and I'm not going to get that smooth background that I'm going for. So I'm not really going to get the super bokeh look that I've got in the reference photo, because to do that, I use an airbrush. But if I do without, it would be the whole video just doing a bokeh background. I want to just get something dark in the back with the greens and the yellows so we can see how to mix those colors, and then we'll layer the other two on top. Let me go ahead and see. So yeah, anyway, if I try to paint around those flowers, one, it takes too long. Two, I'm not going to get that smooth background that we want here. So we'll be painting the background like the flowers aren't even there, and then I'm going to be drawing the flowers and painting them on after. And I'll show you that in a second. Let's go ahead. I've got a couple of questions here. Thank you for being here, Jamie. Let's see. Sergi said, is this the first time we're seeing you use Liquitex soft body? No, you've seen me use them in my Liquitex pours. This is the paint that I typically go with there. They're good paint. They've got that gloss that I typically avoid. Jessica says, maybe a silly question, but what's the difference between titanium white and unbleached titanium white? No, it's not a silly question at all. Titanium white is your white. Unbleached titanium white, do I have one over here? Let's see. I don't know if I've got one over here. It's basically a tan or kind of a cream color. It's not white. Oh, here's one. So hopefully that'll show. Let me see if you can see the difference in color there. Yeah, you can see the difference. So one's kind of an off-white where one's white. So unbleached titanium white is this guy here, and then you've got your titanium white. So using the unbleached titanium white, sometimes it just saves time, because more often than not, I want that kind of off-white color is what I'm going for. I usually keep my bright titanium white for the brightest colors. Let's see. Thank you, everyone who is here today. Let's see. Laura said, finally bought a set of the basics. Been wanting to start painting mainly do pencils, so I'm excited to try them out. Yeah, I really like the Liquitex basics. And if you don't have this reference photo, you can get it over at Lachri. No, that's not it. Patreon.com/Lachri. Link is at the little bottom under the palette there. You don't have to be a member for Patreon to get this reference photo. It came from Pixabay, and then I edited out some of the tulips to simplify, just so we could work on two colors. I wasn't going for the most like amazing design here. I was really more focused on something that had the secondary colors. So your primary colors are your red, yellow, blue. Our secondary colors are what happens when you mix those colors. So when you mix your yellow and blue, which is what we're going to do on this background. When you mix your orange or yellow and blue, you're going to get green. When you mix the red and blue, you get your purple or violet tones. When you mix the red and yellow, you get your orange tones, and those are all your secondary colors. So I was really just looking for a piece that would focus on those. I am putting my colors a little bit centered so you can really see. These are going to be our primary colors here. Let's see. And you'll have people argue, no, the red, yellow, blue, those aren't primary. These ones are primary. The other primary is the CMK, whatever it is. Yeah, if you're a printer, but the pigment in paint is very different than the pigment in a printer, so either can work. I care, you guys know this. I care about my values. Are my darks dark enough, my lights light enough? I'm not that worried about color typically, so there you go. But I definitely am a fan of these. So, okay, let's go here. And then the black we're going to be using for darkening things up. Whoops, I didn't open this one. Hold on one second. And I'm not sure. I'm guessing the ivory black will be similar to other ivory blacks I've seen where they tend to be a bit more translucent. So I normally go with Mars black. Mars black is generally going to be a more opaque black. But we'll see with this one because I don't know that I've tried this one. Let me grab my brushes. No, I did update last night. I'm in the process of updating all of them. On my website, my supply list for acrylic paints, that's all updated. I'll be updating, hopefully later today, if not today, tomorrow, the colored pencil section. So I'm working on getting that. And now I have linked the brushes that I use, the Master's Touch, the generic Hobby Lobby brushes I love so much. So you guys let me know they have it on their website now. So I went ahead and added all of the ones that I really like to my website. Oh, there's the brush I'm looking for. So I'm going to be using, this isn't even on that list, but it is a soft grip, just a filbert. So I've got that rounded tip. I'm going to be adding a bit of water to this. And I'm just going to start by mixing kind of a light yellowy green to use as a base. So when you mix your colors, yellow is going to be the weaker of the colors. So I'm going to start with more yellow and just slowly pull a little bit. See, a little bit of that blue really takes over the yellow. So be aware of that. Maybe a little bit more. Actually, I'm going to mix a whole bunch. I need to fill this whole canvas. So let's just mix all of that. But a little bit of blue, a whole lot of yellow to get this lighter green tone that I want. Now, if I mix a color like this, and so now I've got green. If I want my green to be more of a bluish green, pull more blue into it. If I want it to be more of an olive green, I can pull some red into it, and that will neutralize it a bit for me. So let's go ahead. I'm going to paint this, just get a solid color here. I'm not using a ton of water to thin this, just a little bit so that it'll flow nicely. But the Liquitex Soft Body flows really well anyway. Just a little. I'm going to need a lot more yellow. Let's see. Boots Mama said, in watercolor, the unbleached titanium white is called buff titanium. Yeah, that would be a good way to explain that. Sebastian said, why don't you make a live with oil painting? Because the way that I paint with oil requires several, I have to let it dry overnight to do my next layer. So while, yeah, I technically can do a painting where it doesn't dry overnight, my style doesn't really yield to making something that looks good that way. So that is why. I mean, maybe sometime I will. I used to teach classes where those ones had to be 3-hour classes where I would do paint-alongs in oil, but they're not, that dry time's a bit of an issue, or the fact that it doesn't dry in that amount of time. I'm just going to scribble that, kind of scrub that in there, get it filled in. And now I'm going to take a mop brush. And now for this one, I am working on a Frederick's watercolor canvas board. Just for transparency, I'm sponsored by Frederick's, but they were already the only canvas I used. So no real difference for me there on which ones I chose. But just so I'm honest there, I've got to adjust the color because that looks super muddy yellow. Let me go ahead and blend this, and then I'll adjust the color. So I'm using what is actually a blush brush that is a little bit damaged. So I'm creating more brush strokes than I'd like. I'll have to switch to another one to get rid of some of these brush strokes. I have not cleaned that well, and it needs to be soaked in my brush cleaner to get the results that I want. But let's go ahead and just switch to a clean one. So I'm just going to get out the majority of these brush strokes. If there's a little, it's not a huge deal, but it would be ideal if I could get rid of most of them. I am going to be putting plenty of layers on top of this. Now, the reason that I typically will use a blush brush versus a actual mop brush, this one here is an actual paintbrush and it is shedding. It's not terrible, but I'm going to have to go back through now and pick out those bits of hairs that came out. I'm using this one because my other one I didn't clean, and I have to do that, let that soak. So now I've got to come through and pick out where it's shed. I'll be putting a lot of dark colors on top of that, so it's going to hide it anyway. I'm going to go ahead and rinse those brushes, and then while that sets for a minute, I'm going to adjust the color on my monitor. It's definitely not giving me a very accurate look there. So rinse the brushes. Don't forget to rinse them. Don't leave your brushes sitting in the water. You will damage them very, very quickly. Rinse them and just set them flat to the side. Let's see. Actually, plug your ears. I'm going to dry this so that it has a chance to set while I fix the color, so that it can cool while I fix the color. Now you want your canvas, if you use a hairdryer to dry it, make sure that canvas is completely cooled off before you go on to the next layer, because the acrylics already dry fast. Let's not make it even worse by painting on a hot surface. So let that dry. You do want that previous layer to be completely dry. If it's like dry to the touch but not really set, not dry all the way, then that first layer has a tendency to lift when you put the next layer on. Let me try to adjust this color a bit. That's not quite what it should look like. It's a lot closer. Let's go with that for now. We may have to adjust again as we get going. Okay, yeah, that looks better. So this is just our base. Let's see, how's my reef tank doing? It's doing fine. My Inktense didn't do so well. I think my lighting, I need to upgrade the lighting, but I'm gonna be upgrading the tank anyway. So all my softies, my mushrooms, my green star polyps, they're all fine. But my Inktense didn't, I'll stick with softies for now. Other than that, like the fish are all fine. Fish, snails, they're fine. Vladimir said, have you checked out Gamblin's Imperfect paint tubes? They're sold out, but they're planning to restock the 150 ounce. The prices are unbelievable. No, I have not. Gamblin's a good brand too. Let's see. Scrolling back up. I think I'm missing. Okay, Phyllis said, you were the only thing that's good about COVID-19. We get to paint along twice a week. Thank you for all you're doing. Well, thanks for joining. It's made it better for me too. It's like, you don't feel like you're stuck at home alone. I feel like I'm hanging out with you guys, so it works out well. Let's see. Super Evil Russian said, hi Lisa, thank you for helping everyone stay positive. I got the glass palette box and scraper. I scratched up the glass though. Rounding off the edge of the razor could help. I have not scratched up the glass. Was it this one? That shouldn't happen. I've not experienced any scratching on this glass. I'm not sure why. You shouldn't have to round off edges, or I wouldn't go through the trouble of messing with the razor. I'd cut myself if I screwed around with the razor too much. So I have to limit my exposure to sharp objects, but I don't know why that would happen. If it was this same one, I might contact the company and ask them about that, because that really shouldn't be happening. Let's see. Jason said, thank you for doing these live streams. They cure my boredom. Thanks for joining. Marika, excuse me. Marika said, can you use Inktense and colored pencils together? Maybe do the background with Inktense and the rest with colored pencil? You absolutely can. Or are you asking me to do that? I could do that. I should do that. That would be a good use of my Derwent Pro color, because like half of those aren't light fast, but neither is the Derwent, the Inktense, so that would be a good combination. Oh, that scrolled too far. Avia said, hi Lisa, it's my first time here. I was hoping to paint along with you, but my cat came and trapped me on the couch, so maybe next time. That's awesome. Kitty wins. Let's see. Desorian said, I love it when you have EU time-friendly stream. Baby Panda said, why not use the hairdryer on the cool setting so you don't have to wait for the board to cool down? Because then I'd be waiting for the paint to dry longer. That makes the heat versus not heat makes a huge difference in how fast it dries. Just air, it speeds it up, but not as much as heat does. It's much faster just to wait for the board to cool back. Like the board's been cool for a while. I'm just getting caught up on questions while we're sitting here. Okay, so I'm gonna start mixing in some of these darker greens now. So same thing with the yellow. And then I'm going to pull more blue this time. And see how I just pull them into each other. What I don't want to do is take a scoop of blue and just start stirring it into the yellow. What I will do is have a whole crap load of the wrong color. Not what I want. I don't want to waste a bunch of paint. Especially this one. This one's kind of expensive. So what I'm doing is slowly pulling them into each other, so I can go, okay, I want a little bit more yellow. Let's pull a little bit into that center, pull a little bit more blue as I need to. But this is going to give me more control. This is also one of the reasons that I don't personally use a palette knife to mix my colors. Unless I'm mixing a whole lot, then I'll go ahead and use it. But normally I am not mixing with a palette knife, because I would have a tendency, and most beginner students, now advanced, if you're advanced, you're not going to have a problem with mixing with palette knife. You have a general idea of how much of each to mix. But for those who are new, I never recommended students blend things out with or mix color with a palette knife, because most students are going to just waste a ton of paint in doing that. I'll fill that in. going to go ahead and use a mop brush again. I'm going to blend a bunch of that out. Now, if you are somebody who struggles with color, this is something that you can do. And you don't have to just do primary colors. You can get a few other colors if you want. But a limited color palette is going to force you to learn to blend. And I don't care that this looks like the photo here. I just care that we get something pretty and soft. And we're going to do a few layers in getting that. Got some streaks. There we go. Just doing little half circles with that mop brush. Or blush brush is what it really is. Okay, now this is getting to be a nice base. Now what happens with building up like this, the light is going to refract through each of these layers and you end up with a lot more depth than if I just painted, if I mixed this color by itself and just painted that in, I'm going to have much, much more depth this way than just doing the one color, one layer. I'm gonna go ahead and dry that and then we'll start getting some of these darker colors in there. Like it's late danger, Lisa's coughing. Yeah, I've been coughing since like January. I've got a issue with my sinuses and allergies really bad, and it's causing it. Let's see. Sydney said, hey Lisa, can you paint a portrait of a woman in the future? I have trouble painting faces in acrylic. I have one actually. Just type in Lachri and Lachri acrylic and portrait, it should come up. And it was a lady with flowers that I had done. It was a more loose style, but that one could probably help. I'm sure I'll do more too though, yeah. But there is one available for you now. Sarah said, I did a portrait once using only primary colors plus black and white. Found that to get a neutral brown, I needed to mix mostly yellow with a little blue and even less red. Yeah, you've got to kind of play around with the balance of things. Now, one of the things that you can do that I actually prefer over using the black, if I'm going to go with a limited palette, is using brown, like a raw umber. That will give you, I warned you I'd be coughing without that Claritin. That will give you... if you mix that raw umber with your ultramarine blue, you will get a beautiful black color. It's really nice, but you've also got a brown. So I feel like it's easier than using black. I would rather, it just wasn't in the set, but I would rather use brown in place of the black and mix my own black, but that way I've got brown and black easily. I think it takes a little bit more work to mix a nice brown with these. It's doable. It just takes a bit more. We're not really using much in the way of brown on this one. Let's see. Oh, that scrolled too far. Paige said, have you ever used Mona Lisa transfer paper before? I ordered 2 graphite and 2 of their white, but I've never used it. No, I've not used that one. Taru said, hi Lisa, there's a beautiful artwork on the easel behind you. Is it a complete work or are you working on it? I've been seeing them in live streams and I'm just being nosy. That one's a finished one. You can see it over on Instagram. It's the bee on flowers. It's done in colored pencil over an airbrush background. I would show you, but it's kind of like, it's hard to get that over here. Oops, knocking stuff over. Let's see. Hi, Sneaks. Okay. This feels a little tacky to me, so if it starts lifting up, it's my own fault, because I know I probably should let that set a little bit longer or dry it a little longer, but we are limited on time if I want to get this done today. So let's go ahead. I'm going to mix more green and we're going to start pulling black, but I'm also going to start mixing a little bit of a pink kind of color to put back here. Where did my brush go? Oh, I had lost it. Oh, I actually did lose it. How did I? Oh, here we go. Like there's not that many places for it to have gone. Okay, so again with the green, but I'm going to start going darker now. I'm going to just grab a clean brush really quick for the pink areas. that'll work. And for those pink, it's not just pink, it's kind of a violet color, so we'll mix a little bit of blue. See how I'm pulling them into each other? So I'm not mixing a whole bunch of the wrong color. Pull a bit of white into that. I'll probably mix more of that as I get going, but let's go ahead and start slopping that on there. And my goal here is to leave some of the light, some of the dark. I can do this in 2 more layers if I need to, but ideally I'd like to get this be the last layer. If I were doing this where I had more time, I would do at least 2 more layers. But because we are, limited because it's a live stream, I'm gonna try to slap that in there really quick. More blue to make it more of a bluish green. Gonna pull some of that pink. I'm definitely gonna need more white just to have it in the background there. I've got to paint quick. I don't want this to dry. Now, one of the things you can do with acrylics to slow that down is spray water. And I don't mean with a spray bottle. That's not going to give you the water droplets are too heavy. Use an airbrush. You can use a cheap little hobby brush just to spray water to keep it wet long enough to have time to blend. That you can keep it. I've kept stuff wet for hours when I had really complicated skies. That is definitely something you can do. I'm going to go ahead and pull some of the black in here, just a little, just to get some variation. And now I'm going to rinse that. Get some more of the yellow. Oops, I've got a bit too much water on that brush when I rinsed it. Dry that on the paper towel. So I want there to be some paint everywhere that's wet so that when I blend, I get that soft transition. Again, I do have videos talking about how to get a bokeh background without an airbrush and with an airbrush. I personally prefer with an airbrush, but if you are looking to get the actual bokeh look like what the photo has, those would be helpful. It just takes longer than what we have time for on a single live stream. Okay, so let's go ahead and just lightly blend this out. My goal here is just to have soft edges. So I'm going to start with the light areas, the pink, and then that way I'm not pulling the dark straight into the light areas. So we'll blend those first. Now I can start blending out into the greens. And it's starting to dry. So what I'm going to do is take my brush, rinse it, and I'm going to add a tiny bit of water. Sometimes this works. Sometimes I end up putting too much. But just the areas that are a little bit too dry, I'm not getting the look that I want. Well, tulip's going to go there anyway, so it doesn't really matter. Yeah, this is really drying fast today. This is one of the things I'm gonna have to add some more paint, that I find with Liquitex Basics. They dry a little bit slower. Another thing I like better about them. Oh my gosh. See how I kind of lift those harsh edges? So I'm just going to rework a little bit of paint in those. I need to go faster. Now, if it starts getting too harsh, you can always add another layer if it's not blending out as much as you want. The center doesn't really matter too much because of the tulips that will cover that. This is definitely way harsher than what I wanted. You know how I mentioned when I started it, that may or may not work. Yeah, didn't. Too fast. Okay, I'm going to dry that and put another coat over it. This is a hot mess of not cute. But here's the thing. You have these layers where you're like, I really wanted that to be my final layer, but it doesn't look good. So add another layer. Additional layers aren't a bad thing. They typically will make it look better. So I didn't ruin anything. Nothing's terrible. It's just a bit harsher than what I like. I'm okay with the colors. It's just not as soft as what I want. So I'm going to put another color. And the thing is, each additional layer, I'm going to use those same ones. Each additional layer will get softer and softer. It'll kind of tone each other down. So let's dry this. this up for a second. Beach Mama said, hi Lisa, in your description below the supplies it says the Liquitex soft body. However, when I click on the Amazon link, it takes me to Liquitex heavy body. It is the soft body, and I apologize. The links occasionally change. I've had that before. Like there was a brush that last night I was working on my links, and the brush that it used to be linked to is not the same brush it's linked to anymore. So it occasionally, I'm not sure if that changed or if it could have been a mistake on my part all around. It happens, but yes, it is the soft body. I'm sorry. Allura said, so I love your art and books. My question is, what books, if you could, would you love to illustrate, scene characters, etc.? Chronicles of Elantra by Michelle Segarra, I would really like to see. I like all of the books by, and this is really cool, the books by, I'm just waiting for that to dry, by Annette Marie, and she's also an illustrator. And so she'll illustrate her characters, and it's so fun to see her vision come to life, and she's a phenomenal artist. Great storyteller, great artist, love, like that's a really fun one. So I would have said hers, except she's already done it, which is fun. But I would say, and I contacted Michelle Segarra. She said I could paint some of her characters. I just haven't gotten, I never got around to it, but those are, would be some. Bruce said, just wondering, do you ever use the golden ratio in your art? Not intentionally. It probably happens unintentionally, but I don't like sit there and try to make it happen. I just go for what looks balanced and nice to me. This is still warm. But see, I don't know if you can see on the live stream, it looks better, I think, on your screen than what I'm seeing. Mine is a bit harsher, and I can't wait until webcams get to where they're a high enough quality that you're clearly seeing what I'm using here, or seeing, which makes my work look, it's kind of like when I upgraded my video camera and suddenly you could see my age a little bit better. I'm thinking, why would I want to upgrade it? It looks better here, but I do want it to be very accurate so you guys are seeing what I am. I'll have to adjust the lighting again. It looks a little darker on your end, but let's go ahead and try to paint this quickly. Now I'm going to do something a little bit different. The one time that I'll use a spray bottle is when I'm getting the entire thing wet, because then it doesn't matter if I have droplets. If I have paint already on there and I'm trying to keep it wet on something this size, I'm going to get heavy water droplets that will cause like a little ring that the paint will lift because there's too much water. But here I can do a light mist, save myself some time. Let's go ahead and get that background in there again. And this is going to be semi-translucent, which is great. You'll still see what I did previously, but it is going to be much, it'll soften everything. This might be a bit too much water. It happens. I'm overcompensating for last time's not enough water. I'm going to put a little bit of black in with that pink to gray it up. Just get some variation in there. More black. I've got a bit more time now because this canvas is so wet. It's a bit too wet. If I were to blend this right now with you can see how it's running. If I blend that with the mop brush right now, it's just going to lift that paint up. You've always got to balance out what results you're getting there. I'm going to take just some straight yellow. Put some on there, some more yellow. I really like these tubes. There we go. This almost looks pretty. I kind of want to leave it with it running like that. It just looks really pretty. What's going to happen right now, I'm going to throw paint on the floor. And then what will happen is the areas that are a little too wet, the mop brush is going to start creating, it won't be that soft. Like it's too wet. So I start creating streaks and lifting paint off the canvas instead of really blending it. So I've got to be careful which areas I'm blending right now. I'm going for the ones that are a little bit more dry. It's actually working pretty well now. That mop brush starts picking up too much paint or too much water, just brush it on the paper that's next to it or a paper towel, get some of that off. This gives us a really nice soft look. And so look at this. My last layer I was really unhappy with. I really wanted it to be my final layer, but it didn't look how I wanted it to. So I dried it and went on top. It wasn't something to be frustrated or mad about. It just wasn't finished yet. And this is something that you've got to teach yourself as you're painting. That is going to happen to you all the time where you have a layer and you're just disgusted, like it didn't come out how I wanted. That doesn't mean you're a failure or you messed anything up. It's just not finished yet. It's going to take a little bit more work than you intended. That's not a bad thing. Now I've got that softness. This is exactly what I wanted. So look, I had a terrible layer and I turned it into something far, far better. Let me go ahead and dry this. Okay, I am going to adjust the color on here. So this was a great point. Sergio said, after you dried, it went like really dark. Acrylics are baffling me so much. So it's not that the paint darkened, and this is a common misconception. Now, I guess if you're using terrible paints, it could darken. The paint didn't darken. What happened is it dried more flat, and you don't have the reflection now from the water bouncing back at you, which gives you this, and I'm explaining this terribly, but it makes it look darker than it is. What's going to happen, the paint didn't shift color. Paint's exact color as it was when I mixed it. What is happening, let me rinse these before I ruin them. What will happen when this is done, and now part of this is just the camera looks darker. I'm going to fix this so it looks like what it looks like for me. But I'm having a hard time live streaming in daylight because it's like it affects everything different. I'm used to nighttime colors. But anyway, when this is dry completely, I'll go over it with the gloss varnish and it'll look like it's wet paint again. It'll look exactly like it did before. So a lot of people will say, well, I don't like acrylics because they look so dull. Then varnish them. Put a gloss varnish. They'll look like they did when they were wet. So I'm glad you brought that up though, because it's a very good point. Let's go ahead and see if I can get that color a bit more accurate now. I'm not sure if it's the colors I'm using or the fact that it's daylight. I'm definitely having a hard time getting this to be accurate to what I'm seeing. Let's see. Maybe brightness a little bit. Nope, that didn't do anything good. Go back down. Pull up the saturation. Let's see the white balance a bit. Maybe okay to do auto. Oh, that was a little too bright. Hold on. Auto may work if I darken stuff up. No, auto's not really working because it's still a little too. That's closer. That looks pretty close. My hand's going to look super pink though. The artwork looks closer to what I'm seeing in person now though. So let's go with that. Okay. So the next, I'm waiting for this to dry. The edges were really wet because I had used so much water. But what I'm going to do next, I've pre-drawn out my tulips on tracing paper. So what I will do is go ahead and trace that on the, or to stick that. This needs to dry. I'm going to get caught up on some questions. This needs to set a little bit longer, and then we're going to transfer the image over. Now, the reason that, a couple of reasons that I'll draw before I go into the artwork. One, it saves a lot of time. I only have to draw it once, and then I can transfer the image as many times as I want. I can go back and check if something's off. It's just easy. The other thing is it keeps everything very, very clean. I don't have a lot of draw and eraser marks and all, it's just clean. It's the one line. So it makes the finished result look very very neat. So that is why I'm using that. But this needs to set up for a minute longer before I get onto that. So let me go ahead. I've got a couple questions that I'm going to go through. It's L'Oreal said, I have seen people add a pouring medium to slow the paint's dry time. What is your opinion on that? I don't like adding a lot of mixing mediums. The only one that I'll occasionally use, and I have it here, and I may use it on the flowers a bit, but at least to show you how it works, but the glazing medium. That I will occasionally use, but the thing is with a lot of these mediums, when you add it, it changes it. It makes the paint almost goopy. It changes the consistency, and it doesn't give me the look that I want. If I want my paint to dry slower, I need to paint faster, or use an airbrush to mist water to keep it wet I can keep it wet for hours just by lightly misting water. So those give me better results than all of those. I don't really like all of the additives at all. Carlos said, do you clean your brushes while you wait for the paint to dry? I've seen in lots of tutorials not to leave them in the water or with the paint. So wondering if it's necessary while you wait. Yes. Well, while I wait for this, then I'm going to go ahead and get those brushes clean. I need to get those brushes clean as soon as possible. So yes, absolutely. Alex said, thank you for being an inspiration. These live streams are like therapy. Well, thanks for joining. Okay, let's see if this is, hopefully it'll stick. This may need to set a little longer, but whatever, we'll just chance it. Okay, so I'm going to tape my drawing onto the canvas. The other thing that I really like about doing it this way is I can reposition. If I drew something out, let's say I drew a fish, and I realize, like, I want to figure out where would that fish look best. I can take my tracing paper and move it around to figure out where I like that look best. Another tip, I'm using, I think this is Canson's tracing paper. I don't like it. It's too thick. I want the cheapest generic crap I can find when it comes to tracing paper. This is just what I got from Jerry's. But like, I get the generic, like, it's one of few paintbrushes and tracing paper are my two generics that I like. I don't care if it's even acid free. It doesn't really matter. It's not staying on my artwork. I just need it really quickly. So the generic ones I find tend to be thinner and more translucent. And for me, that's better because I can reposition it, move it around to see if I've got it exactly where I want that subject to be. So I'm going to use white tracing paper. This is the Low Cornell tracing paper, and you just stick it under. Now your tracing paper does not have to fit the whole image. You can slide it around or transfer paper. You can slide it around for where you need it. Let's see, hopefully I've got yeah, I got it. So I've got a little stylus over here, and all I'm going to do is go through, oops, that needs to slide up, and draw that out. And it just saves so much time, lets me have a nice clean line. And I don't care if it's perfect, it just needs to be close. This isn't a portrait where if an eye's off, it doesn't look right. I mean, they're flower petals. The wind blows, everything moves. Oops. Let's see if that's sticking. Yeah, that's showing. I'm having to use an older piece of transfer paper. I cannot find my new one. I can't find half the stuff in my studio right now. I need to find a better way to organize stuff in here. You shouldn't anyway, have to push very hard to get this to show up. Although I have used, what was the one I used? It was one I got at Hobby Lobby and it was terrible. I cannot remember the brand of it, but it just didn't show up. And I've used these before too, where it was almost like it came out waxy and then the paint wouldn't stick. So make sure if you're having problems, that the brand and the type you're using can affect it. Oops, missing a whole thing over here. Okay, good enough. Doesn't need to be perfect. I can freehand stuff in as needed, but this saves a lot of time. If you're not going to do this way, the other way that I like, if you are going to freehand over acrylics, don't use your regular graphite pencil. You want to use a, let's move these out of the way here. You would want to use a white charcoal pencil. Do I have one over here? I don't know where it went. I have one somewhere, but the General's, here it is. This one is the General's white charcoal pencil. These are wonderful. They show up really well on top of the paint. Now, I have to say the Liquitex base or soft body for painting this method, because I've not used them for this way. I am kind of liking these okay. It's flat enough that this is showing. It still has more gloss than the Liquitex Basics, but it's not terrible. I may start adding these slowly into my collection of regular paints that I use. Okay, So the first thing that I have to do, these are too dark. If I try painting orange on top of this flower, the orange isn't going to be bright enough. I need to paint them white first. So that's going to be my first step, is to paint them white. And then I'll get caught up on some questions. Let's see, which brush do I want to use? You will work. It's just a golden Taklon bristled filbert. And I'm going to paint each individual flower. I'm not just going to paint the whole thing solid, because this way I can keep track of which petal went where. I may have to put a couple coats. This is actually weirdly thin. Is this actually titanium white, or is this... Ah, it's transparent mixing white. That makes sense. I didn't even notice that. Yeah, I'm going to switch over, I think, to my titanium white, because this is going to take forever to layer that dark enough. That makes sense why that's... I'm like, that's weirdly translucent. Okay. And the first white I grab is another transparent mixing white. Let's see. There we go. That's good for a lot of what we're doing, just not this right now. I need this to be opaque. That's going to give me very different results. There we go. Let's see. Taro said, hi, are you planning to continue live streaming twice a week? Can I suggest? I would love to see watercolor pencils or pigment markers too. Yes, I will definitely be doing watercolor pencils soon. Probably the pigment markers too. I haven't done those in a while. But as far as streaming twice a week, I'm not sure. I think it's going to depend. Like if you guys keep sharing these videos and more people keep coming to them, then it would be worth it for me to keep doing. But otherwise, it's a lot of work, and it's making it hard for me to get my other videos done and to get anything in life. Like it really, I know it seems like it's only a couple of hours, but it's a lot of work. So the preparing, trying to come up with a lesson that I can get something done in 2 hours. So if this is something you like, make sure you're sharing it, because the more people who are coming to these, the more, it would make it worth me doing. But as of right now, my plan was never to do it twice a week. It was just during these times, being that so many of us are home right now. Well, I'm always home, but that's why I'm doing these right now. But if enough people are showing up regularly, I may change my mind on that. But I mean, it's like anything else. If no one's, it's got to be worth it more. And I'm not saying you, like the individuals who are here aren't worth it. I'm just saying it's a lot of work. And for me to do these, I can't do the other videos. And the other videos long term tend to get, more traction, just the way YouTube works. So. That YouTube doesn't share the content with as many people as they used to. It's hard to get those views, get people seeing it. So you guys being able to share the work, and that's just in general, when you share another like anyone who makes YouTube videos, if you like their stuff, share it for them. That does more good than anything else. Then if you're sharing it, then the algorithm and all that doesn't matter as much. But see here how I'm able to get, I can see which petals are where, or mostly. I don't need to paint the stem in white first. That's going to be green, so it will show up either way. Let's see. Mary said, thank you so much. This is, this information I greatly needed. I'm glad. Zika said, do you challenge yourself in art? And if so, how do you do it? Yeah, usually when I'll see a project, I'm like, that's going to take forever. I don't want to put that much work into it. Those are the ones that I need to make myself do sometimes. But usually when I challenge myself, it's with different surreal concepts, like trying to come up with ideas that are different than something, just different. So often, like just to make a quick lesson, I'll just find a good reference photo and copy that for the purpose of making a lesson. But for my own work, I like to try to get more creative with the surreal side of things, and not just copy a photo exactly. Like, what can I do to make that unique to me? Now, I don't care if some of my brush strokes show. That is completely okay with me. It's like unintentional detail or accidental detail. It just happens without you putting in extra work. I used to spend too much time trying to blend out every single brush stroke. Like I would have sat here, if you went back like 15 years ago, I would have sat here with each one of these petals with a mop brush and fanned it all out and got rid of all those brush strokes. Why? That's just extra detail underneath. They'll be subtle, but it's free detail. But it didn't take extra work. I'm actually, like, for some reason, I was going through and blending, I was removing detail that would have made my work look better. So don't feel like everything has to be perfectly smooth. Remember, with these brushes, the harder you push, the thicker that line or brush stroke will be. If you want a really thin line, like here, I'll thin it out and just barely let the bristles touch the canvas. Make sure you've got enough paint on that brush. If you're getting little like bumpy lines where it's not real, like the paint isn't getting into all the little nooks and crannies of the canvas, the tooth of the canvas, that lets you know you need more paint and more water on your brush. Load that baby up. Don't. One of the things, and I've talked about this before, a lot of people have a tendency, especially newer artists, to not use enough paint. Get more paint on that brush. Load it up. I see like 95% of people are not going to use enough paint when they're starting to paint. So chances are you're one of them. Use more paint. It is rare that somebody's using too much paint. I mean, I'm not saying it doesn't happen. It's just, it's fairly uncommon. Okay, we're going to go ahead and dry this. I have to say, I do like that this set comes with transparent mixing white, though, because that is going to make certain things we're going to be doing way easier. I love transparent mixing white, but for here where I needed solid, that wouldn't have worked. Okay, we're gonna let that set for just a minute. Let's see. As soon as you said that sudden realization, the mixing white was so funny for some reason. Yeah, it was kind of one of those aha moments. Whoops. Oh, thank you, Avia. She sent a super chat, said thank you for everything you do, the happiness and knowledge you bring to everyone. Get yourself a coffee on me when it's safe. Thank you so much. That's so sweet. I'm getting goosebumps. Let's see. Naomi said, would love to start having these paint-alongs, just watch you paint and draw twice a week. I mean, if enough of you guys are showing up, that may be worth it. Like I said, it might happen. We'll have to see. Marika said, is it possible to get a gloss varnish on colored pencil work? I saw something where you could spray fixative and then spray gloss varnish on top or something like that. So Nick is the person we're going to talk to about that. Nick Edgar has a channel here on YouTube. Links in the description along with Joseph Fincham's other moderator, also here on YouTube. Definitely check them out. But he sent me a video. I haven't watched that yet. It just reminded me. I know you sent it and I haven't gotten to it yet. I've been so busy. But he's done that. So I'm really interested in checking that out myself. But yes, it is possible. I know of artists who have done it. I've not done it myself yet, because it's definitely I'm going to be playing with that for sure. I'm a huge fan of gloss varnishes, so I want to look into that. Jason said, you have to make sure that the white is correct. Is the titanium more flat than the other white so that you can layer less the time it's protective? So what happens, the titanium white, it's opaque. The other one's transparent. It's called transparent mixing white. So when I mix with this, it will lighten it, but not to the extent that this one would. This will stay transparent. So like if I were to do a glaze with this, I can still see the detail underneath. If I do a glaze isn't really a glaze with titanium white because it's opaque, but it's just going to completely cover. Like this covered more solid what's underneath. Melissa said, do you ever or have you ever worked in mixed media? I have. Many of my pieces are mixed media. Butcher, thank you, Butcher. Butcher said, love your art. The gods are pleased. Thank you so much. You guys are so sweet. That's all. Someday I'm going to get used to the idea of super chats and not get all weepy about it or gooey. I'm such a dork. Thank you guys. Nick said he varnishes colored pencil work on sanded paper. So that's what he tried it on. I have not, I want to look into this more. But yeah, for mixed media, I've done, I use a lot of airbrush backgrounds and then colored pencil on top or, you know, stuff like that. I've airbrushed with Inktense. Well, wasn't really mixed media though. It was all done with Inktense. Yeah, I've done a lot of mixed media stuff. I mean, technically my oils over acrylic would be considered a mixed media. Still warm, so we'll let that set up for a couple more minutes here. You see, this is where oil paint, like I couldn't do the, well, I shouldn't say I can't do this oil painting as a live stream, because what I would have done differently in oil paint is I would have painted the background, I would have pre-drawn out the flowers and painted around them, because the oil paint dries slow enough I could do that, and I would have left the white of the canvas showing here. So that would have been a difference with oils. Lauren, excuse me. Lauren said, I enjoy all your creations, and it's a way for me to unwind and enjoy being stuck at home. The tips you give are worthwhile. We'll always be down to watch your live videos. Thank you. Michelle said, oh gosh, I missed it. We'll definitely go back and watch the replay. Is this going to be an every Friday occurrence? I love hanging out with you. You are so much fun. Thank you. It is for now. I'm not sure for how long. My intent with this was to do the live streams is, you know, while everyone's with the quarantines and everything, with everyone's the stay-at-home orders, that was the goal, was to do during this. But I mean, if they're popular enough and enough people want to do it, I'll give up the sleep for this. You know, we'll see how it goes. If people keep watching it, I guess it may be worth doing, at least as a paint along. Maybe I could do Wednesday night as my normal, like whatever I happen to be working on that week, and then Friday as an actual paint along. I don't know. We'll definitely, because the one thing that I really like about doing these as paint-alongs, my moderators are cringing right now. Like, I'm not going to do this for two times a week forever. I know, guys. I know. Don't worry. I don't expect you to be here forever. But the the nice thing with this is it gives me a way to do something more for beginners that I don't typically do as a fully edited video. Well, my hand looks super pink on that, but the painting looks more accurate with color, so whatever. We'll deal with weirdly pink hand. Okay, so we're going to start with this guy. We're going to start with the lightest kind of orangey colors here. And I'm going to go ahead. Oh, excuse me, say burp on camera. That's classy. That's what you're here for. I'm a classy lady. So I'm going to go ahead and scrape up the color that is in my way. I just want to get that out. Cleaning that up so I don't create mud. I don't want to have a bunch of blue. Actually, I'm probably just going to put another separate section of yellow, because I do not want any blue mixing in right now with the orange that I'm going to be mixing. So I want to get all of this out of the way. Let's see. Demetra said, hi Lisa, I'm late. I fell asleep. Hi Demetra. Nancy said, have you tried Liquitex palette wetting spray? What's your opinion? I have not tried that, but I don't really need my, like I don't have a trouble with, I want to be able to lift out the areas I'm done mixing. So no, I've not tried that. I should though, just to see what it's like. Letty said, just wondering, when you did the Fur and Feathers workshop with Wendy Lane, how did you manage with the 9 a.m. class time? Just curious. It was rough. I was so exhausted. It takes me, when I do something like that, it takes me weeks to recover. So I am not like a workshop type person. I'm much better for stuff that I can edit and do on my own time frame, or, you know, do the live streams like this. Yeah, that was really rough, and that was even harder because back then my schedule was normally I woke up at 1 p.m. Now I've been waking up at like 9, so since we moved, I've kind of been trying to keep the schedule more like a normal person. But yeah, oh my gosh, that workshop was rough for me being awake. Okay. Some paper towels ready. So we're going to go ahead and pull the yellow, and the yellow, it's the same thing again, just a little bit of red is going to take over. I do not need much. Probably going to mix some transparent mixing white in here too to get more of a little bit of a peach color. But remember, we don't want to just scoop and stir. That is how you mix a whole lot of the wrong color. Let's see where we're at. And some a little too yellowy. I'm going to pull a little bit more red and a little bit more. Actually, I'm going to pull a little bit of titanium white. Let's make it a bit more opaque for this base layer. Let's see where we're at. Yeah, a little bit more red still. But see, slowly. Go slow. Don't just start stirring. I don't know if you're like me. I try not to. I mean, I do end up wasting a lot of paint, but I try not to. Now we're better. See how now we've got a little bit more of that peach color. So this is what we're going to do. And I'm going to fill everything in with this. This is going to be our base. And actually, I can be messy now and paint every single petal and paint right over. You know how I said with the white, paint it separately? I don't need to now because I can paint over it and I can still see my lines. This is translucent enough. I can see the difference there. So I can be pretty lazy, save some time. When it comes to painting, I'm always looking for ways to get to the same end, but with less time. And so this is going to be one of those little tricks. I can be sloppy, just outline the whole thing. Get that nice base. And then we're going to let that dry. But see, I can see my petals. So there was no reason for me to paint them individually. I'm going to dry that guy, and then while he cools, I'll come back over and get our base for this one. So we're going to be skipping back and forth just for time purposes. I'm going to mess with the color again. This is looking super way brighter than I want. And since the background looks like what it looks like in person, but I'm going to go ahead and adjust this so the background's probably going to get darker, but I want to get the flowers, since that's what we're working on now, to be more accurate. I really am sorry that I have to keep adjusting the color on this, but it's kind of hard to teach you which colors we're doing when it is not accurate. Let's see. Let's go ahead and pull up the color saturation. I think it's a little too much. I think the white balance may be a bit off too. No, that's not really our problem. I think it's the saturation is a bit too, that looks really close. The background now looks more muted than what it looks like, but the flower, oh, my hand even looks more like what it looks like. So we're gonna go with that. Okay, well that sets, let's see, where were we? Thank you, Cheryl. Cheryl sent a super chat. It said, your live and tutorial videos here on Patreon have helped me through a really rough period. Oh God, you're gonna make me cry. Like, this one's really making me cry. I wouldn't have gotten through the last semester without your creative boost and down to earth chats. Thank you. Oh God, stop making me cry. Thank you so much. Apparently I have an issue with people being nice to me. I get all weepy. Thank you. Let's see. Where were we? I just scrolled up too far. Let's go back up here. Let's see. Jason said, Lisa, please don't sacrifice your rest. You should get your daily amount of sleep. I think I still get the right amount of sleep. That hasn't really sacrificed too much. I kind of say that as a joke. It just, I end up working constantly. Less World of Warcraft, less organizing my studio, less like little side things that don't have to have, like little fun things, but it'll be fine. Shelly said, don't ever stop being a dork. We love you just the way you are. Yeah, I'm probably more of a dork than you realize. One of these days I'll take you when I'm done, get more done on the backyard. Oh, Crit Myrtle, please don't break. You are way sideways right now. I'll show you some of the dorky things I have in my yard. I blame my mom. I'm turning into my mom more and more by the day, but yeah, the dork part just seems to keep getting worse. Melody said, I really love these daytime streams because I have a hard time catching the nighttime ones. Well, I'm glad. I'm curious to see how many people will be making the daytime ones, though, once people start getting back to work, too. I don't know how that'll work out. Michelle said, this is exactly why I love you. You're real. I'm a real dork. Let's see. Demetra said, chasing chipmunks is tiresome. I have no idea what that reference is to at all. Melody said, my husband now wants to start oil painting, so I told him to start watching your videos to help him get started. Nice. And with oil painting, I have some really good ones for oil painting, and so does Lena Daniels. So check her out because she does more watercolor and oil painting. So she's going to have quite a few more oil paintings than I do. And then if you're looking more for like animal stuff, Jason Morgan has a lot of wildlife oil paintings too. I do oil paintings, just not as much as they do. Let's see. Boots Mama said, yay, another person who thinks that getting up before noon is a chore. Yeah, I am not a morning person. Taru said, I guess we want more lives because we're all mostly stuck home, but please don't put pressure on yourself. Love your videos, live or time lapse. Thank you. Sergio said, have you got a big project in the background besides these short yet lovely paintings? Good save, Sergio. Good save. Yeah, no, I'm starting tonight a cat and colored pencil, and it's not a big project. It's actually a fairly quick one, but I need to get the lessons. And that's kind of one of the things right now. A lot of my time is going towards these, so I haven't done any big projects. I have to get photos of Gibson. There's one I want to do with him and Coral, like a surreal piece. Gibson, if you're new, is one of my greyhounds. But I've also got my neighbor's dog. I'm going to be painting him in like you see these all the time online where they're wearing like clothes from 500 years ago and the whole royal outfit. And so we're going to paint her dog that way. I think it's going to be hilarious and a lot of fun and a really good tutorial because for pet portrait artists, that is something that a lot of people want. So we'll be going over that. So I have plans, but I haven't actually started them. Sally said, I'm so late. Earlier the notification said it was 11, then it said it was 1. Oh well, I hope all is well, everyone. I'm sorry, I shouldn't be allowed to play with my email newsletter. Like I really probably should hire someone else to do that for me because I miss stuff all the time. I don't know if you got the newsletter. I had to send out 2 today because I sent out the first one but forgot to update the links and I probably have the dates. I'm a mess. I apologize. Where were we? George said, is the left one a tulip as well? Yes. He will be, eventually. He's kind of a pointy tulip. He had issues. Cheryl said, I'm so happy I finally figured out how to super chats. I hope you have an amazing weekend. You have made my day more than once. Thank you, Cheryl, so much. Tallulah said, I think I speak for all the viewers. Oh, hold on. Did I need this? Notification. Nope, I'm good. It's my husband. He's home though, so I'm used to checking if it's him in case like he needed me to he wanted to buy something and I needed to transfer money into the account, the shared account. We have to limit how much money he has access to at one point because he used to spend our bill money thinking, oh, money's in the account, not realizing, yeah, that's rent. So, yeah, anyway, that's what, but I forget he's home. He doesn't need anything. Tallulah said, no one cares. Tallulah said, I think I speak for all viewers outside the U.S. when I say we really appreciate the earlier lives, but if you can't keep them going, 2 a.m. is fine with me. Thank you. Bruce said, is the World of Warcraft still around? I thought they ended it. No, it's still going. They've got a new expansion coming. Melody said, I love Lena Dania and told him to watch her too. Yeah, she's awesome. Let's see. Laura said, I usually go to bed right when you start the normal live, so I love having these afternoon lives, but if you can't keep them up, I don't mind watching them after live. Thank you. Sarah said, what are your thoughts on small channels choosing one subject and one medium, otherwise niching down in order to grow? I think it's probably better. Like I may reach, okay, that's dry enough. I can at least mix the base for this guy. I may reach more people because I've got more, but I don't know how many people stick around because I probably should dump this. I have made a muddy mess from that background. Hold on one second. Let me go change my water. I normally don't change it during the stream, but this is dirty enough and keeping the colors clean is kind of a big deal on this one. So hold that thought. I will be right back. This needs to be dumped. You boys stay here. Sorry about that. That was an awful lot of yellow, and when you're trying to get these pure magenta colors, that mixing in wouldn't have been pretty. So I did go ahead and change my water there. But for Sarah was saying, small channels, I think when you're in a niche area, it's easier to keep your solid fan base happy. With mine, I have a lot of people who are like, well, I'm only interested in colored pencils, so they don't watch anything I do with acrylics or oils. Or, you do have crossover. You have a lot who are looking for one specific thing. And for me, I don't serve that. And so it's going to hit my views. Only the people who are really interested in acrylics are going to watch the acrylic ones. Only the people really interested in oils, that sort of thing. So I end up diversifying almost too much. So, I mean, there's good and bad both for whether you're doing a whole bunch of stuff or more like specified on what you're working or what medium. Sally said, no worries at all, you're good and we love you, so it's all forgivable. Thanks. Okay. Super Evil Russian says, worrying cough. This cough has been this way since like January. So if I have a virus, I've had it since January and haven't gotten sick. But it's allergies for me, and I forgot to take my Claritin before we started, and it's bad today. The wind is like 25 miles constant and then a bunch of bursts, so it's horrible. My cough is horrible today. Ziga said, your videos help me go through cancer treatments. Oh, wow. And now through the lockdown, you're a godsend. I vote for you to be nominated as an Avenger. Lisa to the rescue. Thank you. I'm glad I could do anything to help. I'm sorry you went through that. Jason said, for some of us, this is work so that we can sell our work in the future. Is the translation from the flowers to the background putting a silhouette or shadow? I'm not sure what you're seeing. Well, I'm just going to say yes, because I don't know. I'm not sure what that last part was. I don't think I'm reading it right. Okay, so let's go ahead. I'm going to leave that guy. We're going to get a base on him. So here, this is what I find to be when working with primary colors, trying to get your violets to be nice and violet is a little bit of a challenge. This is one area where I do prefer using a glazing medium to water, but I'm going to use water because it's probably what most of you are using. So I've got my yellow, I've got my red, and I'm going to pull them into each other until I get the color that I'm hoping to achieve. And so we get these violets, but here's the thing, this is fairly dark. If I mix my white in with it, that can work, but, and I probably will for a base layer, I'm gonna have to come back through and do a glaze to get the color to be as pure as I want. When you put the white in, even with the transparent mixing white, you turn into more of a pastel instead of that pure magenta color that I'm really kind of going for. So see how I just kind of pull those into each other. So I can do one of two things. I can thin that down a lot with water and let the white show through. Oop, that's too purple, so that's not really what I want. I need more red. So let's dry some of that. You know, it's sometimes, I love my gray palette, but with this sort of thing, it can sometimes be a bit of a challenge when you're not lightening those up. Let's see where we're at here. There we go. So now we've got that more magenta, so I'm letting the white show. Now, an alternative is to go ahead and mix the transparent mixing white in. This is going to fog it up a bit. It's not going to be that pure magenta, but this will work for a base, and then I'm going to have to glaze the magenta on top later to get that more true color that I'm going for. But a glaze I really like because with glazing medium in this case, because I'm able to thin it out but still keep the paint thick, which this is one of few cases I just really like glazing medium. I'm using water here, but that is an option. I'm going to lighten some of this too. I'm going to come back through with some transparent mixing white while it's still wet so that I have a bit of a lighter base. I may even use some titanium white here so that I've got a cleaner base, or a lighter base, I mean. Let's see if that'll go light. Oop, that got yellow in it. Rinse the brush. I just saw yellow on that brush. I do not want yellow mixed in with this. That is a very not what I'm going for look. Yeah, we'll get some more of that white. Actually, I'm going to put more in a clean spot, transparent mixing white, because I don't want, like I really do not want yellow in this. When you're mixing with these transparent, or with the primary colors, a little bit of yellow is going to completely muddy that up, and I do not want that. So I'm going to put the transparent mixing white, and that is actually working really well for me here. So let's get that lighter. Now I'm making sure any brush strokes that I have are going in the right direction. So, you know, that if there's streaks, that they're going in the way that the streaks of that petal would be. So we talked earlier about accidental detail or unintentional detail. That's it right there. So I'm going to let some of those streaks show intentionally. So it looks like I've got that nice detail. I keep reaching for that. I've got whites all over the place trying to keep track of which one is where. And I do not care if these are perfect. If the petal is slightly out of place, it doesn't really matter at all. So we've got our general lights and darks here. Like, it's kind of mapped out where the petals are going to be. But I'm going to come back through and do a glaze to get that violet as light as what I want. By even using the transparent mixing white, I'm getting a pastel color, which isn't that true rich color that I want that end result to be. I'm gonna go ahead and throw some streaks just so they're going in the right direction on this guy. Okay, now this guy is dry enough. We'll let that set. We're gonna go back over to our orange one. So I'm gonna rinse that brush out really well. And I'm going to be more neurotic about making sure that brush is rinsed really well, more than I normally would. Again, we're only using 3 colors and we're mixing everything. And if we start mixing all of these together, we're just going to get a muddy, horrible mess. Trying to keep the colors pure is our challenge here. So make sure that brush is rinsed really well. And that's why I went and changed the water out. I normally don't do that. I don't know if you guys have ever seen me do that in a live stream because it normally doesn't really matter. Here, a little bit of that yellow into the magentas, and I've got this muddy, not cute color. Oh, thank you, Jamie. Jamie said you're just awesome and it's super fun to support when I can. Thank you so much. You guys in the super chats have been crazy lately. It's still like, it's just crazy. Thank you. Not going to cry. Let's see. Scrolling back up, I missed a few here. Where were we? Okay, hold on one second while this dries. Let me get caught up on a few of these, but the super chat is, here we go. Mary said, I started watching your colored pencils, but I'm also interested in other media. Your instructions translate well to others. You are also fun to watch. Thanks. It's L'Oreal said, I am only into acrylic, but I watch just about everything, or everything watching cheers me up. Aw. Leroy said, thank you for turning a boring Friday into a breath of spring. Thanks for joining. Lauren said, I found you through live streams while I was specifically looking for acrylic, but I still watch your other videos in pencils, oil, etc., and it makes me want to adventure into those too. Well, that's good. I like hearing that. I have fun working in lots of mediums, so if I can infect the rest of you with that, that's good. See, that's what my actual cough is. It's not really allergies. I'm infected with getting people to, it's a disease where you will want to buy all the art supplies. Let's see. Where were we? Bruce said, what's the benefit of a gray palette instead of a white background palette? You can go with either one. With the gray, it's easier for me to see the color that I'm mixing. With the white, sometimes you're fighting the white like it's too bright. So when I'm mixing, what it's going to look like on the canvas can be a little bit, like the contrast is too much there when I get it onto when I've got a darker background. So this just is kind of a neutral in between. It just makes it easier for me anyway. I find it easier to mix the color that I'm really looking for. Because it's rare that I'm painting straight onto white. Mama said, I primarily do water media and colored pencil, but I love watching people's other mediums, so I watch all videos. Thanks. Taru said, I'm going to mix the red and blue, but I'm getting a very dull looking purple violet. How and why? So it's probably the red that you're using. This is what I ran into and why I had to postpone this video, because the reds I have weren't the specific red, I had the blue, I had the yellow. I didn't have that specific red. Actually, the yellow, as long I had ones that were neutral enough, it would have worked. But the red, it had to be this very, not a warm red, not a cool red, just middle of the line red. And I tried using a few. I tried to counter it by using, well, if I use a red that's more cool, maybe if I use a blue that's closer to yellow in the color, shift that over, that'll work. And I kept getting these very dull violets. And that was why it has to be that. And it's listed in the video description. It's I can't say it right. I call it Quidonkadonk red, but it's the quinacridone crimson is the red that I'm using here. So that is probably why. It's not really your fault. It is probably, now if you're using this color and you're not getting that, you practice more. But most likely it's the red that you're using is not, or the blue. It could be either one. But usually I find the red's the one that makes I struggle with getting the right thing there. So that is probably why that's happening. Avia said, I'm loving this, excited to see the cat and colored pencil too. I've been selling pet portraits for 5 years, but hard to make a career alongside a full-time job. Do you have any time for any tips? So tips for do you mean coming up with the time or just selling? Am I not reading that right? I've been selling pet for 5 years, but hard to make a career aside a full-time job. Do you have time for any tips? tips. Let's see. I'm going to go ahead and get started on this. I'm going to do just yellow on parts of the center because I want to kind of make this glow a little bit. Tips. Let's see. For pet portraits, for selling them, if you have pets and you're in, this is how I did a lot of myself. I'm just doing glazes, by the way, of yellow just to tint some of these lighter areas. Now I'm going to go ahead and go back to the peach. If you are in groups, like I'm in a greyhound group because I have greyhounds. And so that group allows artists to sell. I don't try to do commissions anymore, so I don't do that myself. But people come in that don't even have greyhounds. They just painted a greyhound and they'll join that group and share their work. It depends on the group's rules. So definitely, check with that. Not all groups allow that. But if you're in a group, like I've got a cockatiel chicken. If I could share in a group for cockatiels a painting that I did for him, and that may get other people that want to hire me. Now, one of the big things that made a difference for me early on. Now, Facebook has changed their, I'm just going slightly darker here. I'm gonna need a little bit more red. But Facebook has changed the way the algorithms work, but I did really well too doing giveaways. So I would do a giveaway of a pet portrait, and the giveaway would have a link to how you could order a pet portrait for me. So one person would win, but I might have one or two people that hired me because of it. So that was a good way to get, word of mouth out, free advertisement basically, to start selling, getting more pet portraits that way. Originally, back before Facebook and social media, there were forums. So I was on an Italian Greyhound forum, and I got a lot of, I'm just going to smudge that out, and this is why that base layer is so important for it to be dry. If that was wet, this would just be lifting up right now. But I was on that pet portrait or the Italian Greyhound forum, and I got a lot of commissions that way. Like several of the commissions, if you go to my website and see all the Italian Greyhounds, that all came from the forum. Very few were, some of them were after in social media, but I met most of those people because of that. If you do pet portraits, you might want to consider going to, like if you do dogs, if you go to, when dog shows get back, people doing those again, dog shows, you can meet a lot of people who want portraits of their pets, or maybe sell prints like of all, if you do have dogs of every breed. At one point, that was one of my goals. I wanted to have lots of prints of every breed available and sell those at dog shows. So that could be a potential place. Or if you do horses, going to horse shows, horse events, that could be a really good place for you to get some pet portrait commissions. But there are quite a few places or quite a few ways that you can get those portraits. But you basically, no matter what you're doing, you need to find your target market. Who are your target market? Or where are they going to be located? Where are the people who buy stuff for their dogs going to be located? They're going to be located at pet events. So it's like, I know Orange County, California has their pet expo. If you can get a booth there and sell prints and get it, in front of people who might want to buy something like that for their animals, that may be a way to go. But just figuring out where your target market is. Let's say you paint or draw cars. You're going to want to go to car shows. You've got to find where those people are and go there. Go to them. Like one of my friends, I met him at Aquashella, Sam Scales, amazing artist. He does, I think, primarily watercolor with fish, and he sells prints and such. He goes to where right now, obviously that's a challenge. I'm adding just yellow to lighten up some of this on the edge. I'm just adding it straight on there and letting it mix. But he would go to like Aquashella and stuff like that, where people who have fish would be interested in buying his prints. Figure out where your target market is and go to them. We've got a darker area in here. Let's throw that in. Let's see. Melody said, do you have any recommendations on mixing a good purple with primary colors? I can never get a good purple no matter how much I mix the blue and the red. It's the blue and the red that you're using. If your red is a little too warm, a little too cool, you're not going to get a good purple. So having the right one, this red, the Quinongadonk red, or I can't say it without looking at it because my brain, quinacridone, not quinacridone, whatever. That specific red is the one that's going to give you the violet purple, like the brighter color that you're probably looking for. Unfortunately, if you don't have that specific one, and the same thing, your yellow has to be neutral, your blue is new, everything's just straight down the middle. If you shift too warm or too cool, you're going to get more dull colors. You can still make something very, very pretty. Like always, your values matter more than your color, but that is probably why you're getting the dull purple. that scrolled too far. Nicole said she has that disease too. We get everyone to catch the buy art supplies thing. Laura said too late, I already have that. Nick says super chats are trickle up artonomics. Sally said, Lisa, is that quinacridone red? Did I spell that right? Quinacridone, I think. I don't know how to spell anything. No, it's Quinacridon. I think that was an I in there. Let's see. Bruce said, love to mix as I can never say that word. Azurin, whatever, crimson and ultramarine blue to make a beautiful violet color. Boots, Mama said, I like quidonk. It's easier to say. Yeah, but now I can never say it right since that hit my brain, and that's just what it is now. Jason said, I have that inclination that you do, and now I have all the different projects that you use. I apologize for the addiction I have infected you all with of all the art supplies. Where were we? Michelle said, speaking of Italian Greyhounds, how are yours doing? Ancient. I unfortunately don't. Then this is why I don't, well, that and they're old and they don't need to be on video. They're retired, but I don't, Jessie at this point is kind of a day-by-day case on, is this going to be her last day? She's almost 15 and she's got a lot of health problems. And so, you know, you've got that where you have to balance out what is her quality of life? Is she still happy or is she starting to be in too much pain? Like what? Yeah, we're getting to that stage with her. So that sucks. Echo's got cancer. I don't know how she's made it as long as she has, but yeah, it's, they're old and unfortunately that is definitely starting to show for both of them. So that's why you don't see me post a lot about them or anything. It's sad. I mean, they've been with me for a very long time. So, but as of right now, I mean, they're still kicking. There we go. Just see how I'm just building up. Where are those shadows? Where are those highlights? And make sure these shadows are lining up right. This shadow is here because that petal, this petal, one of those petals is overlapping the other. So that is why that happens. Whoops, that scrolled too far. Sally said, is he the guy you did the portrait with the ocean life of his beard? No, that was somebody else. That was another friend. That's Brandon. He owns the fish store I go to. Sarah said, I've heard that Aerosmith have a weekly meeting called Dare to Suck. I think we need to take that approach in our art. That actually makes sense. Yeah, I mean, with art, you've got to make some bad stuff to make the good things, so that makes sense. I'm going to let that one set. I'm going to dry this one with a hairdryer so that we can start getting the darks in on this guy. Said, FYI, all those shows are closed down due to COVID. I'm a vendor and out of work as shows have canceled now through July and August. Yeah, no, exactly. And I get that. The advice for going to the shows, they're just for when this all opens back up. Yeah, no, it's not a good time for that sort of thing, but eventually it will be again. No, you're completely right. A lot of those shows are even further on. They've been canceled. I think there was one in October that was supposed to happen. An AKC show that someone posted was already canceled. What do I think about the comparison between gold and liquid textile? I don't use an open acrylic. I don't like them. It's weird, and I want my paints to dry fast if I'm using acrylics. If I want them to dry slow, I use an airbrush so that I've got control. So I'm not a fan. Sarah just said, would you say that pastels are the Illidan storm age of your art life? Not as in, if not, is there another medium you dislike with a passion? So those are hard. So pastels are so pretty, but when they touch me, they freak me out. Like the feel of them, I just cannot stand. I love how they look, but yeah, no, pastels. Charcoal, I would say, is kind of the same thing. Both of those are a no for me, just because of how they feel. Sarah said, what if you paint multiple subjects? I'm not sure what that question went to. I'm sorry. Michelle said, oh, I'm so sorry. Yeah, I don't want to depress everyone with my dog's health issues. I'm grateful I've had them this long, but yeah, the IGs are they're a day-to-day thing right now. Gail said, how's Chicken and Nugget doing? They are doing wonderful. And Nugget, oh my gosh, that bird can talk. His vocabulary just keeps growing and growing, and he's hilarious. I need to get him on video. Some of the, like, just the sounds he makes and that bird is funny. And Chicken's his typical, usual chicken self. This here, again, the red and the blue, I'm not mixing any white with it. I'm going to start using this to get these nice darks in. And this is going to make my lights look nice and bright. And this is just a base for blocking in my general lights and darks. We're going to come back through with a few details and clean everything up. Right now, everything's kind of messy. Now, if you've got more time than I do in a live stream, and I mean, I have to rush this to get it done in 2 hours. If you spend 3 or 4 times as long, you can make this look like a photograph with these same paints, with these same techniques. You're just going to put more layers. Just take your time. Don't feel like you have to go through as quickly as I am. Yours will look better. Actually, I should switch to a round brush for that and make my life easier. I'm kind of making a mess there. Let's just erase that by adding some water and lifting that. My shape is not right. Grab a round if I've got one over here. Why not? Where's my favorite round? There it is. I have this generic round. It came in a set of a ton of brushes. Fine Touch is this one, but I have another one that doesn't even, the other ones I really like don't even have that on them. And they're wonderful. Sometimes generic brushes are just, they're good. Let's see. Whoops, scroll too far. Pamela said, do you know another online store that is cheaper than Amazon? It depends on what it's for. I mean, a lot of them are. I need more information. If it's for art supplies, I usually go to either Jerry's or Dick Blick are my two go-to. Although now, I'm not even shaping this right. Pay attention to what you're doing, Lisa. Now that Hobby Lobby has their brushes online, I just ordered like $60 worth of brushes last night. I'm pretty excited about that news. Because I can't get to the store. Well, I can't get to the store at all right now, but I don't get anywhere very often because I don't drive. So I am really happy about their brushes being online. I hope that continues. Okay, so we've got where this fades down. So we'll just take that, put a blush, and then just kind of smudge it out. Start throwing some of these darker areas in there. With that smudge, and we'll be glazing a more reddish color over some of this. Just get those lines in there. And just look at your reference photos. Where are your lights? Where are your darks? They may not make sense. Just copy what you see there. It'll all come together in the end. And with flowers, what you want to do is look at them in the sense of abstract shapes, not as I'm painting a flower. If I look at this as a flower when I'm sitting this close for this long, I don't see a flower, I see a hot mess. You want to instead look at the shapes, look at your reference photo. Where are the shapes? Where are your lights? Where are your darks? That is what's going to get you that more realistic look. So we're going to dry this, go back to the orange flower, and start cleaning some stuff up. Mama says, I miss Chicken in the Lives. Yeah, I need to get a cage in here that's safe enough that the dogs aren't going to get to him. I've got the greyhounds in here and they'll eat him. So he has to be in a cage that is very, very safe. And then I've got to get them used to him so they're not messing with the cage and scaring him. Oh, hold on. This is not info. There we go. Yeah, that's on the to-do list that I haven't done. Bruce said, love Lick art stores and online store. I've never been into a store. I've only ordered online, and they're wonderful, and their customer service is great. Demetra said, I just ordered 2 of each synthetic hog hair liners today. You're going to love them. They're wonderful. Boots Mama said, when you need to buy replacements for any Derwent and Caran d'Ache, check out Jackson's in the UK. Since we're in the US, no VAT tax with shipping and still cheaper than Blick. Interesting. Nicole said, Lisa, you mentioned a very small, long bristled brushes from Hobby Lobby in one of your last live streams. Is it Master's Touch? It is. And what size? Number 2 is my favorite. Number 2 and number 3 are probably my main go-to, but I also use 1s and 4s. 4s the least often. My 1, 2, and 3 are my main, 2 being the main. And I updated, if you guys need the links for those, I updated them on my website. If you go to lachri.com, then at the top where it says supplies on the menu, go down to acrylics, and I've got those brushes, the synthetic hog hair liner, my absolute favorite liner brush. And it's a generic brush, so it's very inexpensive. Love those brushes. So glad you can get them online now. So yes, those are updated. I'll be updating colored pencil supplies next. That is very out of date. Okay, so now we've got areas where we've got lights, we've got darks. We're going to go one petal at a time. I'm going to go ahead and just take, oops, there's some pink in there. Let's rinse that out. We're going to grab some of the transparent mixing white, and I'm just going to go over the highlighted area, just smudge that down a bit. I'm okay with there being streaks, because as long as they're going the right direction. This brush is probably a little bit large. Let me switch to a smaller one for blending. This guy should work. It doesn't really matter which one. Like I just grabbed a golden Taklon bristled filbert. Blend with, just grab another brush. Any other brush to blend with. So now we'll start doing some of these details, and I'll still have to glaze to get the color exact where I want it, but we can start getting these details and cleaning up edges and such. Sneak said, I bought the full set of Inktense pencils in the wooden box at Jackson's for less than I would have paid for the set here, tin here. Wow. That is crazy and good information. I know Jackson's has a really good reputation too. Let's see. Mary said, I may have asked this before. If so, I'm sorry. Do you ever work in watercolor? I work in watercolor pencils. I don't even have a pan watercolor set, but I do work in watercolor pencils, and that will probably be one of the live streams next week. So if this ends up being too white, it's no big deal. I'll just glaze over it. Demetra said, and Hobby Lobby has the brushes for 50% off right now. Yeah, and that's why I bought so many last night. And if you go to, like if you're watching this live stream after the fact and you want to buy them, they go on sale, like I'd say every 2-3 weeks. So you can get some really good deals. Oh, this whole area needs to be darker. I'll have to come back over there. Let's just grab this brush real quick. Too light. Still too light, but at least it's a start. Sergio said, I'm glad customer service is great out there. I ordered here 2 things of masking tape and a couple of polychromos colors. I received none, and the tape and the wrong colors. Did they fix it for you though? So that's my thing. I don't care if you make a mistake as long as you fix it. Because I had an issue. I forgot to add something to my cart that I needed, and I called. It was on a Saturday, and I had this lady, and this woman could not have been more helpful. She told me initially she was going to have someone call me during the week, you know, once they were open. She called me back a little while later going, I'm just afraid they're not going to get this. And so she went above and beyond what she needed to do to make sure that order was fixed. And the funny thing is, she was fixing my mistake. It wasn't even their mistake. Like, I was just so impressed with them. It's amazing how one really good employee can just completely change, or one really bad employee can completely change your attitude about a company. Beach Mama said, hi Lisa, beginner's question. What is the main difference between Liquitex Basics and Liquitex Soft Body? So Liquitex Basics, they don't have as many colors. They dry a bit slower, which is one of the things I really do love about Liquitex Basics. And they have a more matte finish. These have a little bit more of a gloss finish when they dry. And they do have more colors available. The Liquitex Basics, they're not as highly pigmented. For me, that's a good thing because I like to do a lot of glazing and a lot of layering. So I really like all of those translucent layers. Although I will say I probably will switch. I should try it first, but the orange in this I want to try because oranges in Liquitex Basics, they're good for glazing. They're not good for really anything else. I always have to mix my own. So I'll have to try that out. But these definitely dry faster, which I don't love. Yeah, the Liquitex Basics are considered a student grade, yet most of them are still archival. If it's archival and light fast, then it's fine for me. But I just really typically prefer the Liquitex Basics. Here, I was looking for specific colors that I couldn't find in the Basics, so that is why I ended up going with the soft body. And they're a nice paint. I do like the consistency. I don't like that they dry as fast. Whoops, that's not the one I wanted. That they dry as fast as they do, so... I usually use the Liquitex Soft Body when I do acrylic pours. Liquitex Basics would be way too translucent for that. So I'm still using the transparent mixing white here. I'm just creating a few streaks here and there, little details. Remember, your reference photo is a guideline. If you think it looks better to add more detail, to change something, go for it. It's not like something that has to be exact to make a pretty painting. Now, if I'm doing a portrait, I'm going to be more exact, or animals, I'm going to be more picky about certain things. But on a flower, you do what makes it look prettier. They're just guidelines. And what I'll be able to do once I get most of this in is just glaze to tint the color where I want it. Some of these definitely need to be darker, more red, more magenta on some of this. Okay, we're gonna let that guy dry. We're going to come over and do the same thing over here. Just focus a bit more on our highlights. I'm just using the transparent mixing white again. Where are we? Sneak said, have you ever used the Inktense on fabric? If so, what brushes did you? I have not. So I can't give you any advice there. I'm not really a fabric painter. I haven't even used it on canvases yet, and I need to. I really want to. I want to try it on the watercolor canvas board. I was going to do that on the last Inktense project we did, but realized, you know what, maybe I should experiment on that off camera before I make a fool of myself on camera, just to find out what the differences are before I drag you guys through the process. Or I guess if I listed it as something we were experimenting together and talk about what the differences were, maybe we'll do that. Maybe I will do a video, a live stream with Inktense on a canvas board, a watercolor canvas board, and we can talk about what I like and what's a bit of a challenge or what, you know, that sort of thing. Jessica said, I bought the 36 set of Winsor & Newton pigment markers a few years back on Black Friday on Amazon. Retail $150. Amazon sold for $100 and Black Friday they were $50. Wow, that is awesome. Whoop, that just scrolled too far. Kathy said, is transparent mixing white the same as zinc white? Pretty much, basically. I mean, different ingredients, obviously, but yeah, you're going to get the same effect. The transparent mixing white isn't as blue as zinc white, has more of a blue tint. So, I mean, there are some differences, but they're very similar. Mary said, where were we? Are you using something to cover your final result? Huh? Oh, a varnish. I'll put a varnish over it when it's done. I'll do Liquitex gloss varnish. I won't varnish it today though, because even though this will feel dry to the touch, if it's not, it will smear and smudge. And I've made that mistake a million too many times. I can't even say one too many times, way too many times. So I won't be varnishing it today. I want to do a video probably for Instagram or something, or maybe I'll do it on YouTube. I don't know, but just varnishing. I have a whole bunch of paintings to varnish and it's really fun to watch how those come out. It makes things so pretty. So just cleaning things up here. And this is still a bit on the dull side. It's not as bright as what I'm going to want it to be. We'll have to come back and do that after I do this. So we're putting in all these little highlights. Somebody back there was breathing weird. It's Gibson's nose is hanging out of his bed on the tile floor with his snoot like bent sideways. No wonder that sounds weird. That can't be comfortable. Here's a little bit of extra detail that's not really in the photo, but it's going to be a little bit of a highlight that when I glaze over it should be really pretty. It won't stay this light though. Okay, we're going to let that set. I'm going to paint the stems really quick. I'm just going to use the same tackle and bristle filbert, but I'll hold it slightly sideways so that I get that thinner line. So let's see, we need some blue. Actually, we've got that green from earlier. We can use some of that. I'm going to throw some transparent mixing white in there. Make it a bit more pastel. A bit more blue. Let's see how well this shows up. Meh. Let's pull a little bit more, there's none. Let's put some titanium white in there. Maybe pull a little bit of black to give me a grayish tone. Maybe not. Maybe I'll leave it more pure, just because. Really, I just want the hint of the stem. I don't really care that it's all perfectly shaded or anything. This one has more of a reddish tint to it, so I'm going to grab some red from the side here. Go right in the middle of that. Oops, too much. Wipe some off. There we go. There's some on this guy too. He's got a little bit of shadow up here. That was a bit too much red. I'll go back over that with some green. I got a little bit too carried away. There we go. Okay, we're going to dry this. We're going to start glazing a little bit more. If you've got an easel that has little knobs on the side and you have a hairdryer next to you, little tip, you can buy a ring. It's just a split ring. Well, not a split ring, it's called something else, but it just kind of breaks in, like the kind that snaps in half. I stuck that on the end of the hairdryer, and this I just hang on the little knob on the end of the easel. My old easel, I just stuck a screw in there, or yeah, I think it was a screw I put in there and would hang it on that. It is so much easier. I used to set it on the floor and have to dig for it every time and bend over, and you know, I'm lazy, I don't want to do that. So being able to hang it off the side of my easel, so much easier. Okay, so now we can start tinting the color a bit. So we've got, again, the orange, yellow, pull those into each other. Well, if you'd move your nose. Oh no, Gibson did move his nose. Now Wade's dreaming. Yeah, wake up. I think he's running and barking in his sleep. Okay, nope, too dark. Don't like that. Need more red. More red, more water. So we're going to thin that out. Let's see. Where were we? Bev said, thank you for all of the time you put into your many videos. Glad you were recognized in Colored Pencil magazine. You have such a great presence. I enjoy the smiles. Got to go. Thanks for joining, Bev, and thank you. Miriam said, I love your videos. You are such a nice person, and you give amazing advice. You are such a fun person. Hope everything is well. Thank you. It's L'Oreal said, this may seem like a silly question, but what is the difference between crimson red and quidonkadonk or crimson? I'm not sure. Depending on the brand, one may be a little bit warmer, one may be a little bit cooler. Different brands are going to call them slightly different things. So you may get, the mileage may vary depending on the brand that you're using. So here has way more red as I blend this one in. But I'm not sure with that. It's going to depend on the brand. And even if you told me the brand, I don't know. I'd have to like look at the specific color or look up the information. My neighbor's dogs are barking. Demetrius said, what is the weather like there? We're under a freeze warning tonight in central Kentucky. I had to cover all my flowers to see if I can save them. It's unreal. Wow. Right. It is going to get dropped to, I think, 47, or last I saw it said 49, so it wasn't as cold. But it is going to get colder here tonight. I brought my adeniums back in the house. Actually, I brought my baby ones in. I need to bring the bigger one in too. They really don't like to go below 50. They'd probably be okay at 49, but why risk it? So I've got to bring them in, but we're not too bad. The only thing right now that's concerning me is the wind is so, and we get windy here. That's not unusual. By the way, this is red with a tiny bit of yellow. It's mostly red, but we are so windy. I'm worried about what it's going to do because my crepe myrtles haven't really rooted yet. I mean, they're starting to, but they've got a ways to go. So they're still fairly weak. And that does concern me. Concern me enough. I went and looked up online the place that I got them to see if they still have them in stock, if I have to replace them, because they're they are just blowing sideways and they're still really young. So kind of weak there. I'm a bit concerned for them. All my other plants and everything else seems okay. I wonder, I did not look if some of my lights keep blowing off the way I've got them hung. But the weather, it's just the wind right now. We had crazy lightning storms last night. Luckily, the lightning was around my house. Like it went from the west and then kind of circled under us. So we got to watch it without having to experience, anything starting on fire. Always a bonus. But that last night was a bit crazy with that. Today, it's mostly the wind that's the issue. So yeah, if you, and I know I mentioned this before, but if you are struggling with color and not knowing what to do, make yourself paint from 3 colors. Even if you don't have the same red as me, you don't have the same blue, it doesn't matter. Learn to mix with what you have. That's how you're going to learn to shift color and such. And things don't have to be perfect. It doesn't matter. Mine's not exact to the reference photo. That doesn't mean it's not going to be pretty. Ideally, take more time than what I've taken on this. I am certainly limited time-wise, so I'm only going to get, it'll only be so good in this amount of time. But take more time and just learn to blend with what you have. I know that seems scary, but that's how you're going to improve your work. You just have to jump in and do it. So we're going to come back to this guy now. Wow, Trey said it's going to snow here in Maine. Poor Nick and his bees. How are your bees going to handle this, Nick? He's up in Maine too. Am I not supposed to tell people that, or do people know that? I don't know. Maybe I just outed your location. Sally said he's dreaming and he's in a race. No, actually, neither of mine have ever raced. They were both failures. Well, and then they closed the tracks down in Florida, so they retired a lot of them early. Well, Gibson was already retired. Gibson's on his back, legs in the air, tongue hanging out the side. Gibson, I don't know if you can see if I move the screen down. Hold on. This is worth sharing. Let's see. There is my graceful greyhound. You kind of can't see his head. You can't see the details of the tongue, but you can see the legs in the air. Dork. That's why these dogs are perfect for me. They're dorks too. They're lazy and they're dorks, and they like to go on walks and then go pass out the rest of the day. It's like my spirit animal. Let's see. Jackie said, speaking of easels, do they come with those knobby things on the shelf behind your canvas? now to rest on, or do you buy them separate? I haven't gotten one yet, but you need to invest. It depends on the easel. Mine do. Mine have, this one is a bit elaborate. This is like that easel that will last me the rest of my life. But this one has, I need to do soon. I've got so many videos now that I have the proper camera set up. But this easel is more elaborate. My last one didn't have all of this. They had some knobs, but not like I had to actually put a screw in the side to hang it. So it just depends on the easel you get. Oops, that's just jumped. Where were we? Emily said, are your crepe myrtles staked? They're not, and I wonder if I should. I mean, they've been fine, but they, like, I'm not even sure how you stake a crepe myrtle, because you've got, each one has 5 or 6 different trunks. So I'm not even, I don't, if you know, let me know, email me, whatever. I don't know. That is something I probably should look into. My other trees, my elms, my cedar elms are staked, but not the crepe myrtles, and that may be a bad thing. I don't know. I don't know if you're supposed to stake crepe myrtles. Let's see. Do you know about a mermaid drawing for every day of the month of May? Some really gnarly art. I don't do a lot of those, just because I don't have time to do, I need to rinse that brush out. I don't have time to do like a new piece every day and do videos and all of those. So I don't really pay too much attention. They're cool. I love the idea. Anything that gets people to paint and draw more is a great thing, but I've not. Melody said there's nothing wrong with being a dork. It makes life more interesting. I think so, and more fun. Okay, let's go ahead and tint the color on this guy. So again, with the red and the blue, I need to make sure there is no yellow mixed in there. I'm going to come off to the side here. Too much blue. Let's see if that's going to work. I need to thin it out with a lot of water. And it just touched red. Clean that brush off. Let's see where we're at. No, I think that's going to be too much purple. Let's pull more red. Nope, more red. So you just test. It's not like, I think that we have in our heads that artists like know the exact mixture to get what they want. You don't. You're testing. You're experimenting. Don't be discouraged because you don't know the perfect red. I don't know the perfect red. I'm going to mix until I find it. There we go. That is what I'm looking for. I'm just going to wipe this over a lot of these and then wipe some of it off with a mop brush. I'm intentionally going to let the mop brush remove some of this so it's more of a tint. Oops, too much. I'm going to add water to pull some more off. It's drying faster. It's very weird for me with the Liquitex soft body how fast it dries compared to the Liquitex Basics. One more check mark in the Liquitex Basics or better box, I guess. There we go. Now let's go ahead and get some darker areas in here again. I mean, these are nice. When I started this, I was like, well, maybe I want to buy more Liquitex soft body. And I may get some just because of some of the more unique colors that Liquitex Basics don't have. I really like my Liquitex Basics better for blending, for everything. And I've had friends of mine who are professional artists that I really look up to and are like, oh, you should try this painter, you should try that one, use more professional ones. And I'm like, I like Liquitex Basics. They work for me. As far as, well, in this case, the dry time is the big thing. This is certainly drying faster than I'm able to, which is interesting to, I don't know, that's just a very interesting thing to me, that I'm able to blend my basics easier than these guys. Well, I can take my time anyway. It's not really easier. I can just be slower. A little bit more blue here. Just gonna let that blend up. Let's pull some transparent mixing white for a little bit of highlighting. Let that mix in with the blue. Curve that around. Make sure that brush stroke is following the curve of that petal. So it's not just flat. You want to watch that with your work, that you're not just making everything flat, like a flat solid color. Watch the reference photo. Where are those lines? Where do they curve? Let those work for you. Where were we? Jason said, what do you call a group of dorks? Lisa followers. Julie said, I'm waiting on the cat testing from an organization adopting my greyhound. Hopefully the one that comes to my house is as dorky as yours. I think they all are. If you join a greyhound group, they all lay like this. Like, this is so normal. Now, luckily, Gibson is... his legs are really in the air now. He started off with that very early on. Like, it did not take him long to start laying like an idiot. I say an idiot, I just think it's hilarious. But I think it's because he has no fear of anything. That dog is stable. Wade started laying like that fairly, I guess, early, just not as early as Gibson. Wade was a bit more scared. He was more, and I've read where other greyhounds took months before they started doing that, but it seems like eventually, sooner or later, they all do, once they're comfortable. So like here, I'm putting this bluish red, not because it's necessarily what the reference photo calls for, because it's not. It just looks pretty, although I am going to switch to more of a reddish color. Throw some more transparent mixing white in there. Okay, a little too red. More blue. And more white. Make sure not to get the yellow in there. Just little hits of highlight. I'm going to pull even more red now. I'm going to thin it out quite a bit and let that glaze over some of that magenta. It needs to be pretty thin. There we go. So by glazing that, there's no mixing white mixed in with it. It gives me a little bit of a brighter tone. But I had to thin it out quite a bit with water to get that to really show up the way that I wanted it to. I can do the same thing with the red over here, just taking straight red, pulling it into a few areas. And unfortunately, this guy is not a focus there. No, I guess that's about right. The color, for some reason I am having, this looks really muddy. Let me see if I can adjust the color so that'll be more accurate, and then I'll do a couple final brush strokes and we'll call this done. That's been an ongoing challenge today to get these colors even remotely accurate to what I'm seeing. Nope, too bright. Actually, that's... If I brighten it up enough to where the purple looks accurate, then the orange, it looks like it's blown out. So that's not the best. Ooh. That's, no, maybe. I'm kind of screwing around with the color saturation with everything to try to get this to look... None of this looks super accurate. I don't know. Let's see if I turn these on brighter, if that'll help. Maybe a little. Kinda. Yeah, my purples look too dark. That definitely doesn't look quite how it does here, but it gives you kind of an idea. That's... Yeah, this is not, unfortunately, looking super accurate. I'm trying to adjust stuff to make it as close as possible, but if I adjust one to make the orange one look more correct, then the purple one does. Like, they're They're not cooperating, unfortunately. But like always, your values. Dark's dark enough, light's light enough. That really matters more than anything. But I'm going to put a few more details on this guy, and then we will be done. Sheila said, how did you arrive on the name Lachri Fine Art? Real part of your name or fantasy? It's part of my name and part of my sister Christy's name. So it's Lisa and Christy mixed together. My mom used to breed Himalayan cats and basset hounds and Shih Tzus, show bassets and show Shih Tzus. And Lachri, she mixed her two daughters' names, and that's how she came up with that. And I just always liked how it sounded. And I hated my maiden name, and I knew eventually I'd get married, and I didn't want to change that. I wanted an art name that was going to stay no matter what. And so I just took that on. And my mom hasn't bred in a year, so it's not used for animals anymore. So yeah, that is how that came. This guy doesn't have as many highlights as I intend to put, but that's okay. And I guess the big thing that you can take away from this video is just the slow mixing. Don't just grab paint and start stirring. You're not going to get the color you want. You're just going to have wasted a whole lot of the wrong paint that is not what you wanted. Work slow as you mix those colors together. Now you can mix a lot of it as needed, but you still need to mix slow. I think that's one of the things that's very frustrating for people when they're learning to mix is watching themselves just waste all that paint that they spent so much money on. So if you can go slower, that is going to solve a lot of your color mixing problems. Miriam said, can you please show me what polish you were using to cover your painting at the end? I'm sorry if my English isn't amazing. I'm Lynn from Romania, but I'm trying my best. Oh no, I totally think I have no problem understanding you. No, it's Liquitex glazing medium. If you I think it's on the front page of my YouTube channel. If you look at Lachri, how to varnish, or not glazing medium, I'm sorry, varnish. Lachri, how to varnish paintings, it's on there. Or if you go to my website, lachri.com, under acrylic supplies, it should be under there as well. I don't have it over here, so I don't even know where I've got it located right now. And I'm not going to varnish this one today because it will smear everywhere. Where were we? Whoops. Oh, I'm really slow on these. Hold on one second. Let's get caught up on some of these questions here. Where were we? Here we go. Miriam said, hi Lisa, love your flower, flower painting, and you already know how much I love greyhounds. Their goofiness makes them what's dear and special. Oh, definitely. These two are hilarious. They're so funny. Emily said, I have a link for how to stake young crepe myrtles. It's not necessary to leave it staked permanently, but I figured it would be helpful while it's vulnerable to strong winds. Yes, please send me. Thank you. Phyllis said, Great Danes are a lot like greyhounds. Sleep a lot and lay weird. Demetra said, do the greyhounds already have names when you got them? Interesting names. Gibson came with that name and we just liked it. I was going to name him something else, but I really I had other names planned, but Gibson just fit him. And then Wade, his name was Kane. He didn't know his name. They named him when they got to the greyhound, the adoption place. But his name, Kane, I didn't really like. That seems to be the name that a lot of people who have, and not that I'm opposed to pit bulls, but I used to work at an animal, now Wade's upside down. I used to work at an animal hospital, and the people who are like, my dog's tough, his name's Kane. It didn't fit a greyhound to me, especially a greyhound laying on his back with his legs all sprawled out. So I wanted that changed. My husband liked the name because it sounds like a wrestler, or it is a wrestler's name that he likes. I don't know. My husband is also a dork, but some dork thing he watches. So he liked that name, but I talked him into changing it. So we went with Wade. Wade was a name my husband has always wanted a name. He wants a corgi named Wade. I don't want a corgi just because I don't want to deal with that amount of shedding. I think they're awesome dogs, but I am too neurotic with things being clean, and that's an awful lot of shedding. So I told my husband he can have a corgi, but he needs to, I mean, not now, we've got enough dogs, but if he wanted a corgi at some point, he can have one, but he needs to vacuum and sweep every day. And he told me that was the equivalent of telling him he couldn't have one because he didn't want to do those things. So, hi Gibson. Are you bored? Gail said, do you prefer Master's Touch natural or synthetic hog-hair bristles? I have never even tried. I didn't know they had natural. So I've only used the synthetic. So that's what I would say. But I've not tried the other ones. I didn't even realize they had them until I was looking at their website last night. Well, hi. Are you bored? Let's see. Kind of curious. What do you do with these quickies from the live streams? They make very nice personal gifts. That's what I do. I give them to people like for holidays and stuff, Mother's Day or Christmas gifts. That's typically what I do. And I used to do that a lot too, because I would do paint-alongs like this when I taught at Michael's when I worked in California or lived in California. And I would have so many of these because I'd have multiples a week. I had a ton. And for years, I had Christmas gifts for everyone in the family. It was really nice. But, yep, gifts they work well for. Okay, so that's pretty much it for this guy. You can put in, if you wanted to do some brighter titanium white highlights, like little sparkles. We'll just make him look a little shinier. A few little dots here and there, like waters on him. Just kind of putting those on the edges of some of these petals. It's not in the photo at all. It's not like scientifically accurate or anything like that. It's just pretty. It's a pretty detail. Let's see. Michelle said, definitely trying this one later tonight. I can't paint at the moment, but still like to have you on the background to listen to your advice. Oh, that's awesome. Oh, wait, scroll too far. Where were we? Michelle said, it's beautiful. Thanks. Thanks for joining us today. Jason said, and you do not understand when I write questions. Apparently not. Let's see. Sally said, that's your question to answer about what's a dork. That's your question to answer about what's a dork. Melody said, you are not kidding on the scheduling from a corgi, or shedding from a corgi. We have one in vacuum and sweeping every day isn't enough in my house, especially when the seasons change. Yeah, and it's funny. So Wade has what they call a kennel coat, and I didn't even know greyhounds could do this. When you get some of them, if they, most likely he was kept in a kennel outdoors, which does irritate me. I'm not a huge fan of the breeder having done that by any, I mean, he's obviously fine, but still kind of like, seriously? But anyway, he developed a coat that is so dense and so thick. When he got to me, he was poofy like a teddy bear. I've never seen this before. I'm looking at that going, ooh, that is not what I signed up for. I mean, he's a sweet boy and I'll deal with it. He'll shed that out and hopefully it won't come back because he will not be kept outdoors. But this dog is shedding. I have fur everywhere. It's finally, and I've been using the slicker brushes or the de-shedders. And oh my God, I have stripped so much fur off this dog. Poor boy. And he's hot all the time because, you know, he's a greyhound. He's not meant to have that coat. But I've been working to get that. And even that amount of shedding is driving me crazy. I'm like, oh, I don't think I could do a corgi. My husband would definitely have to be sweeping and mopping, or not mopping, but sweeping and vacuuming a lot. And I don't see him keeping on top of that. They're such awesome dogs, though, and they're so freaking cute. And I'm a huge fan of corgis. You know, minus the shedding. I'm just putting random highlights and stuff where I think it's pretty. This is the stage where I pretty much take a step away from the reference photo. I don't spend a ton of time looking at it anymore. I'm looking at mine. What do I think would make my painting prettier? There we go. And this is still, and I apologize, one of these days they're going to invent webcams or a setup that works for me that has accurate, well, that's good. This is just a webcam, so it's not accurate, but the colors of the orange are a bit blown out. You're not able to see the details as I am, but there you go. I think we had a few more. Are we caught up? Oh, this is going to jump. There it goes. Melody said, I love our corgi, but I wouldn't have another one just because of the shedding. Ours has her long tail too, which is beautiful. I really like the bunny butt ones that are the Pembrokes. God, they're cute. My husband really likes the cardigans with the longer tail with the what are they, blue merle, or are they called dapple? I'm not sure what color they call. Essentially the same thing, but that merle that the cardigans can have. So cute either way. Okay, are we caught up? I think we're caught up. Yeah. Wow. Yay. Okay. Oh, Jason said, you understand someone that has English as a second language. The person who speaks Romanian is what I was referring to. Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. Okay. Demetrius said, awesome job as also. Thank you for these live chats. I really enjoy them. Thanks for joining. Yeah, and so you kind of get an idea of blending, and you can see from the mess on my palette, you can mix so much from just those 3 colors. Well, and of course white and black, but you've got so much you can do. And so if you are, and I've said this a million times in this chat, but if you are struggling with color, limit your color palette, whether it be colored pencil, Inktense, paint, whatever. Use fewer colors. It doesn't have to be these exact colors. I mean, these exact colors will give you the brighter magentas, but if you're using a different red, it'll be more dull, but that's fine. You'll learn to mix that way. When I started painting with acrylics, I couldn't afford all the colors, and so I had to go with the limited color palette. I did buy violet, purple, and green, so I did have a few other colors, but even then, if I wanted a green that was warmer, I had to mix to get that. If I wanted a cooler green, I had to mix to get that. I didn't go out and buy every green available. I have a lot of colors now because I'm lazy, and this way I don't have to mix, but I can. And I think working from a limited color palette, doing the starving artist thing in the beginning and not being able to afford many colors did me a lot of good, because that's how I learned to mix. You learn that way. You can read every color theory book in the world. You can go through all of that. If you don't sit down with a limited color and make yourself learn to do it on your own, those books don't do you any good. Learn through trial and error. Most artists that I know who are professionals did not study color theory that much. We jumped in. We just said, here's paint. I'm going to figure out how to make this work. And we experimented. And we still experiment today. This is an ongoing thing. So you definitely want just to get in there, limit the same thing, colored pencil. You saw the video I did with macaws. Hopefully you saw it. With the macaw, I did a military macaw with just the 12 set of polychromos. And I could mix anything I wanted from that 12 set. Well, plus I added a opaque, I think I used the Drawing Chinese white, because, you know, I like the more opaque white pencil. But you can use a limited palette and learn so much from that. I think it gets very overwhelming, and especially in colored pencils, when you've got a set of 150 pencils, like, oh God, which one do I choose? I don't know which one to choose. Grab one. And if you're sitting there where you're just frozen in fear of, I don't know which color to choose, that right there tells me you need to limit your color choices. Pick the set of 12, like look up online what set of 12 would come in that set and make yourself only work from those. You've only got one yellow, you've only got one green. You've got to make those work. If your green is too green, add red to it to neutralize it to get a softer color. And that's how you learn, because you're forced to. It works. It really, really helps. Gail said, Pembroke are my favorite too. Have a wonderful weekend. You too, Gail. Laura said, I have a German Shepherd shedding so crazy. Oh God, they shed bad too. Melody said, ours is solid white except for a black and brown patch around her eye. Oh, how cute. Let's see. Miriam said, shedding of a husky is about the same as corgis. Brush them and you can make a new dog. I was actually getting that from Wade, which was crazy when I brought, and that you don't see that with greyhounds. So yeah, that undercoat, I've never seen greyhounds don't have undercoats. So that was weird all on its own. But I thought he might need to lose weight because his fur was so dense, it made him appear to be overweight for a greyhound. And he wasn't. He just had I'd say it was about 1.5 inches thick of this dense fur that just coated him. It was so soft. I mean, the softness was awesome, but the shedding, and you can tell, I think he was very uncomfortable. He was hot all the time, panting constantly. So, yeah, the fur is definitely not for me, or the extra shedding. I definitely like breeds with Gibson sheds. It's just not to the extent that Wade's currently going through. Gibson's blowing his coat too, but it's small, little hairs. Anyway, thank you guys so much for joining us. And yeah, it is a winter coat, except greyhounds shouldn't have a winter coat. So, not like that. Gibson, you want to come say goodbye? Come here. Gibson, come. Come. Good boy. Here, let's see. Can we get you on camera? Can we say goodbye to everybody? There's Gibson. Say goodbye. He's like, yeah, come on, let's go out. I'm bored. Aw, you see him resting his head. Sweetest dog ever. Oh, he's so sweet. You got an eye booger. I cleaned it, don't worry. Anyway, thank you guys for joining. We will be here Wednesday. I'm not sure what we're going to be doing Wednesday. We'll be painting or drawing something. Wednesday and Friday we'll be back here. Again, thank you so much for joining, and yay, we'll see you next week.